What made you stop trusting professionals with your child? Last Wednesday, I got the call that my son Elijah was choking at his autism therapy center. By the time I arrived, they were already loading him into the ambulance with a tube down his throat. The therapist, Miss Lexi, explained that Elijah choked on his snack during break time, but I hadn't packed any snacks for him. During the ride, things got even worse. My boy's throat was clear, but he was still somehow blue and purple in the face. His brain was shutting down from a lack of oxygen, and the medics kept telling me this shouldn't be happening. At the hospital, he was rushed to the back immediately. The doctors came back 4 hours later, telling me my kid was on life support. I went to instinctively hug him for support, but he stepped back in disgust. His face had an expression almost like he was accusing me, and he asked if I needed to confess anything. It took me an hour of pleading to convince him I had no idea what he was on about. That's when he pulled out an X-ray of my kid's lungs. There it was. Gray industrial foam, the kind used for soundproofing, embedded deep in Elijah's lung tissue. The craziest part was when the doctor pulled it out, some of this foam looked weeks old. Something had been happening at the therapy center. That night, I got a call from my insurance company. They said they were sorry to hear about my son, but the plan I had with them meant they could only cover 72 hours of life support. The only way I could extend this coverage would be to prove that foul play was at hand, and that I hadn't deliberately done this for an insurance payout. I tried to argue over the phone, but got nowhere. The next morning, I went straight to Miss Lexi's classroom. Why was there foam in my son's lungs? I asked bluntly. Her face went pale, and she backed against the wall, her hands shaking. Sometimes their sensory toys break, she started stammering. This was soundproofing foam, not sensory toy foam, I responded. She stuttered something about talking to the director and excused herself for a meeting. There were other parents in the classroom dropping their kids off, and I saw fear in some of their eyes too. In the parking lot, one of the parents, Jennifer, stopped me. Is Elijah okay? My son Billy told me something yesterday. She looked around nervously. Billy says Miss Lexi brings foam blocks in her bag and takes some kids to the back room, but only the kids who stim go with her. My face went white. My son rocks and hums constantly. It's how he self-soothes. Billy says he hears crying from that room. The crying stops, but the kids don't come out for another 20 minutes. I felt sick. Another parent, Robert, overheard and joined us. My son Max came home gagging last week. Miss Lexi said he ate too fast at snack time, but Max said he never got snacks. He's been refusing to go to therapy. He won't tell me why. He just screams. I stormed back into the therapy center immediately and demanded to see the security footage from the quiet room. The director, Mrs. Wilson, folded her hands on her desk. I'm afraid that camera has been broken for months. How convenient. The room where Miss Lexi puts our kids through who knows what. The camera is broken. Mrs. Wilson shot up like she was offended. Miss Lexi is our most experienced therapist. You're overreacting to an unfortunate accident. Accident? There's old foam in my son's lungs, I yelled. She stood up. Without proof, your son just ate some foam. His kind aren't the brightest anyway. I suggest you take a look at your own parenting and maybe you'll find a pattern. Now leave before I call security. I flipped her off on my way out. 30 minutes later, I was in my car making the 90-minute drive to the state licensing board. When I got there, the woman at the desk barely looked at me. She told me to file a complaint online and I'd get a response in 6 to 8 weeks. I told her I had 3 days until they took my son off life support, and she told me to take it up with law enforcement, so I did. I made the 90-minute drive back, but Mrs. Wilson had gotten to the station before me. I saw her walking out and flashing me a grin. When I complained to the officer, he redirected me to the lady Mrs. Wilson spoke to. We know what you're doing here. I kindly suggest you leave before we put you in handcuffs for professional harassment and child endangerment. My jaw dropped. As I walked back to my car, I realized if the law wasn't going to help save my son, then screw the law. I called my best friend Jacob, who was studying law, and told him I need a favor. I need you to scare the truth out of her. That same evening, Jacob and I arrived at Miss Lexi's house with Jacob wearing his best suit, carrying a briefcase, looking like a high-powered attorney. She went pale as soon as she opened the door. Miss Lexi, I represent the Garner family. We need to discuss your options before criminal charges are filed. We stepped into her house. Her words came out broken. Cry criminal charges? Watching her face drop more and more was priceless. But Jacob didn't even directly respond. Instead, he started speaking in legal jargon that she didn't understand. By the time he was done, she understood one thing. 25 years minimum. That final sentence was all it took. Her knees buckled and she started chugging water. Actually choked on it before managing to compose herself, which was great irony. But Jacob wasn't done. Your husband is an educator. He will lose his job. His life will be ruined. Your kids will grow up hating you, wondering why mommy tortured children. Miss Lexi was sobbing now, curled on the floor. Please, Jacob pulled out his phone. I call the DA, or you can tell me exactly what you've been doing to these children. Full story on channel linked below.